Joe Burrow asked, is this all surreal or not, Joey?
I wouldn't call it surreal.
Or is it?
I wouldn't call it surreal. I would say it's exciting. I think if you would have told me before the season that we'd be going to the Super Bowl, I probably would have called you crazy. But then, we played a whole season, and, nothing surprises me now. I know the kind of guys that we have and the team that we have. So, there's still one left. We're excited about this one, but, we'll celebrate tonight and then move on.
Okay, so they'll celebrate tonight and then move on. Now, there's something that, and man, I don't love the Bengals. I just dislike them less than the other teams. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, because the Bengals, despite beating the Steelers twice this year, and fairly comfortably in each of those games, the Bengals aren't annoying yet. And part of it, I think, is because Burrow is generally a pretty fun guy, it seems like, or at least fun to root for, I guess. But once they start beating the Steelers' brains in on a regular basis, they'll become a lot less cute and a lot less fun because they won't be the underdogs anymore. But I get what you're saying, and I tend to agree that, I wanted to see the Bengals beat the Chiefs, not because I'm necessarily a huge Bengals fan all of a sudden, but just because I like to see something new, different, unique in the Super Bowl, and we've never seen Bengals rings.
Right.
And we haven't seen the Bengals there in 34 years, so why not?
Now, there's something that's floating around on social media, and it's been picked up by a bunch of different people, Pony being one of them, Zeiss being one of them, and the question is it applicable? And is it fair to apply to this situation? And it goes kind of like this, and people have copied and pasted it in many different formats, but the thrust of it all remains the same. Bengals playoff wins this season, 3. Mm-hmm. Steelers playoff wins in the last 11 years, 3.
Yeah.
Now, I'd like to dismiss it out of hand and go, well, there's an expansion on the playoffs. Well, how many rings do they have? Well, look at the franchise. Well, come and look at the Lombardis. Well, okay, the Bengals, they haven't done anything. But when you distill it down to simply those numbers, I'll tell you what. Bengals playoff wins this season, 3. Steelers playoff wins in the last 11 years, 3. I find it tough to simply argue against those hard numbers.
You can't.
They won 3 playoff games, and the Steelers could only win 3 playoff games in a decade. What more goes into it?
What's frustrating is, we sit here and and this is, we all, as fans, as people on the air, as people just on the bus today, going to work, wherever you might be, we sit here and say, man, just give me, you know what Mike Tomlin needs to give us? Just give us one more, just give us a playoff win, Mike, please. Just a playoff win, just one. We're not even asking for 3 in 1 year. And the Bengals, with the second-year quarterback, granted, I think he's great, Jamar Chase, rookie wide receiver, they win 3 in 3 weeks.
Right.
And that is what's incredibly frustrating is that I shouldn't say the path hasn't been difficult, because it has. The Bengals have sucked for the better part of 3 decades. But it makes you take a step back and go, man, the Bengals, who have been a giant cluster, like I said, for the better part of the last 3 decades, due in no small part to their ownership, sure, but that's what they are. They've figured it out in 2 years. In 2 years, they've gone from 2 wins to 3 playoff wins in a Super Bowl trip.
But
why
people
can't
will
the
say
Steelers?
It's because they won the playoff games because they lost the games.
Okay, that's fair.
Right?
That's fair. They got to choose first over. All that, I get it. And they made the right decision, right? To not trade the Dolphins were willing to offer them a raft of picks to move up and take Burrow. And they said, nope, we got our guy. Well, at the same time, if you're not going to commit to, well, we might have to have a 2-14 kind of year in order to get a top pick, in order to get the talent that we want. If you're going to commit to, we're always going to be in it, we're always going to be 8-9 wins at least, you better also understand, like I said earlier, you better be willing to make some big, bold moves, or at the very least, not sit around during free agency and be aggressive in building your roster going forward so that we're not all sitting here asking each other, why do the Steelers only have, to your point, 3 playoff wins in the last 11 years and the Bengals have 3 this month?
Yeah, I mean, Burrow has more playoff wins than Lamar Jackson and Baker Mayfield it's combined in less time. If I have that right, yeah, he's got 3. Those guys don't have that. And now it took – see, this is the thing. People in Pittsburgh can't decide. They can't decide. They don't want to have the pain that comes with the childbirth. They just want to have the childbirth. They don't want to have that. And the pain that comes with the childbirth is 4 wins or 5 wins. We live in such a screwed up situation mentally in terms of what we think our football team is right now. And part of it, too, that threw a big wrench into all this is the TJ Watt contract. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but whenever you do that, it symbolizes you think you can be competitive every single year, and you can't give up and wave the white flag on somebody like that. And it's a no-win situation they're in. They really are.
But when you have a TJ Watt and a Cam Hayward and a Minkah Fitzpatrick and a Najee Harris and to a lesser degree Pat Freiermuth, when you have all that talent, you're not going to go 4-13 or whatever is necessary to get that top 5.
But you're not going to go and rip through the playoffs without an offense either.
So it comes back around to, if you're not going to aggressively tank, if you're not going to pull a Dolphins, if you're not going to be the Bengals for the better part of 2 decades and suck out loud, then you need to find a different avenue for being aggressive, whether it's in a trade.
Okay.
And we talked about Watson a moment ago, whether it's free agency and spending the $32 million in cap space on things that are just as good as a draft pick. That, an offensive lineman that can anchor your offensive line for the next 6, 7, 8 years, that you go out and you spend money on.
But I don't care if they have the Hogs playing in front of Mason Rudolph this year. He's not going to lead them through a playoffs.
But it makes
just not.
Okay. So as long as Mason Rudolph, and I agree, Mason Rudolph's not carrying them to a Super Bowl. But as long as Rudolph or Haskins are the quarterbacks, should we not try to improve the team, I guess?
No, they absolutely should.
So like I said, you by all means, throw your hands up at the quarterback position and say, damn it, we are in a bad spot here. We got Rudolph and Haskins. Neither one of them is a Super Bowl caliber winning quarterback. The free agent market sucks, to be quite honest. The best we're going to do is a bunch of guys who are just more Rudolphs and Haskinses. We can't trade for anything that will provide a solid impact without either A, risking everything, that if we trade for Deshaun Watson, he'll end up in jail in a year, or if we trade for Aaron Rodgers, he'll only play for us for a year and then be done, and we'll have to give up multiple first-round picks to get either one of those guys anyway. So be aggressive in building out the rest of your roster, effectively saying, hey, we're screwed at quarterback this year, but we're going to plow through and still try to improve our team in every other avenue, at every other position group, and then figure out quarterback after you've got the framework built.
That is a great argument. Here's the dangerous quotient to all of this. And it's a fear. I love football in this town. I love the Pittsburgh Steelers. Here's my fear, because my whole life at 45 years old, I know how the Steelers operate. Let's say that they pass on a quarterback this year. They go out and they get an offensive lineman, and he's good. I mean, he's good. He tells Kendrick Green, stand down, fella, you're not playing, or you're at least moving to guard. They plug and play, he plays center, and he's good. So that guy plays. They have a running back we already know about that's very good. They have a tight end we already know about that's very good, okay? They go and they play with Mason Rudolph. And you know what Mason Rudolph does next year? Mason Rudolph is good, bad, okay. This game, he's pretty good. That game, he has a bad one here, throws a couple interceptions. And Mason Rudolph gets to the end of the season, and you know what he is? 10-7, 9-8.
Right.
And they go to a playoff game, and it comes right down to it, and they throw the football over to middle to Gentry or somebody who's come on this year, and it's a 2-point game, and he gets hit hard, and somebody strips him from behind. And they were just right there, and they went into the playoffs as the 5th or the 6th seed. And Mason Rudolph has just enough a good season, and Mr. Rooney goes, we showed improvement. Mason Rudolph showed improvement. He was pretty good. And then it's kind of like, when will they then go ahead and try to do something different out of their MO? That's my biggest fear, because I think Mason Rudolph, and sometimes it's for show, that I'd say the guy really stinks. He doesn't super stink. He's not good. But I wonder if Mason Rudolph is bad enough with the running game and with the tight end and with the defense to even lead this team to only 4 or 5 wins.
This is not, as long as they have, again, the 5 names I mentioned, Watt, Hayward, Fitzpatrick, Harris, Freiermuth, they're not going 5-12.
And Mr. Rooney will say, man, if Gentry would have held on to that ball, and if we would have gained 5 or 8 more yards, and we were in Boswell, you know how good Boswell is, he would have made it from 48 yards, and then we move and we get that playoff victory, and we're just right there, and it satiates so many people in black and gold fandom fan base area here, and there's still not that playoff win. And my fear is then, Art the 2 goes, See, we were right there. And Mike Tomlin says, elimination tournament.
I mean, Art the Two's making excuses on Friday about how the offense wasn't necessarily terrible. So I get why. And look, I understand that fear.
Why should I believe that's going to change when it never has? He said run the football more. They went out and got a running back. They ran the football a little more. They're still all right
And
here.
I'm not saying we should sit back and cross our fingers and knock on wood and hope and pray that eventually the Steelers are going to see that they need to be more aggressive in building out their roster, especially in a year when they got $32 million in cap space. I'm saying we need to admonish this organization.
Yes.
And we are lucky enough to be in a position where we speak into these microphones right here, and lots of people are hearing what we're saying, including lots and lots of Steeler fans. I'm telling you, Steeler fans, let it be known to Art the Two and everybody else in the organization that you want them to be aggressive. If that scenario plays out that you just described, Colin, they don't get the quarterback this offseason, but they fill out a whole bunch of other spots on the roster, and all of a sudden, big-name free agent O-lineman.
I just described what's happened over the last 8 years.
Right, and they have another year like that. They go 10-7, they lose a wild card game, and Art the Two walks out there again sometime next January and goes, hey, Mason had a pretty good season. And I want everybody to stand up and say, not good enough.
Draft a quarterback.
Keep your eyes open for a quarterback.
Use draft capital and trade up and draft a quarterback.
And I understand that fear exists because, like you said, it's what we've been given the better part of the last decade. Well, we were good enough.
We were good enough. Single elimination tournament.
Yes.
Say it with. I mean, but Chris, you and I don't think we're very far away from our philosophy on all of this. Maybe I need to get out of this mode. But I am caught in this fear, in this vortex of they keep serving me the same dish when the waiter comes out. Why am I expecting it to be a different dish?
There's no reason for us, honestly, to be hopeful that it will be different. All I'm saying is, at a certain point, I'd like to see it be different. And I'm going to repeat that again and again, over and over again, until somebody down at 3400 South Water Street goes, you know what, guys? Maybe we should be a little more aggressive in how we're building out this roster and not just count on the fact that we're going to have to sit around for 2 or 3 more years and continue to be the team that gets into a wild card game and loses.
With the 19th pick in the draft, the Pittsburgh Steelers take some big galoop from somewhere in the middle of America.
That's fine by me.
I mean,
take the big galoop. Rebuild the offensive line. Better yet, sign an experienced galoop from the free agent market. Sign another galoop to play inside linebacker. At least one who will actually make tackles. And please, be aggressive in addressing your weaknesses on this roster, because there are many, but you've also got a ton of cap space, more than you've ever had before.
Always. With the 21st pick in the draft. I mean, it's between 18 and 23.
Go offer Ryan Jensen $15 million a year for 5 years. Steal Tom Brady's center. Be another reason Tom Brady doesn't want to even think about coming back. Get yourself do something. All I'm saying, do something, please.
They got Ebron.
There's that.
Fan Morning Show. Presented by Matt Mertz Plumbing. Now
it's freaking January, and I'm losing my mind about the offseason already.
Because you know how it's going to play out. Yeah. Now